At the age of 19, a young man named Eli found out that his dearest companion, whom we'll call Lily, was stricken with stage 4 ovarian cancer. The inevitable reality of her terminal condition projected a bleak life expectancy of a mere 5 years at most. The two would often engage in sobering conversations about mortality, contemplating the unpredictability of life and how the ostensibly healthy Eli could just as likely meet an untimely end before Lily. From these discussions, a pact was forged, a promise that whoever departed first would return in some form to affirm the existence of life beyond death. Tragically, Lily succumbed to her illness at the age of 22, leaving her devoted husband, Nathan, and their cherubic 3-year-old son behind. Eli vividly recalled the chilling call from Nathan on that Sunday morning at 8:20, requesting him to accompany their son to the hospital as Lily had breathed her last. That day, Eli's world spiraled into a state of hazy disbelief, struggling to accept the harsh reality of Lily's absence. As he spent those last few hours in her hospital room, a profound shock consumed him. His mind was a whirlwind of unprocessed emotions, yet he didn't shed a single tear. Eli's life, once filled with the routine of work, the comfort of his home, and the constant presence of Lily, was now disrupted. The prospect of returning home without the comforting presence of Lily, who lived just a short distance from his workplace, felt daunting. The knowledge of her absence threw his life into turmoil. Sleep eluded Eli that night as he grappled with feelings of loss and confusion. However, around 3 a.m., he experienced an incredibly comforting sensation, akin to a warm, encompassing hug, which allowed him to finally succumb to sleep. That night, Eli dreamt of Lily. In his dream, he relayed to Nathan that Lily had left him a letter. Strangely, Nathan responded that Lily had also left him a voicemail. In the dream, Lily's letter expressed gratitude for their friendship, love, and care, requested them to watch over her son, and assured them she was no longer in pain. Upon waking, Eli's mother, drawn by an unknown impulse, asked him for a pen and paper. She wrote a letter, then handed it to Eli, unsure of why she felt compelled to do so. Astoundingly, the words mirrored those of Lily's letter in his dream, and it was even signed with her father's last name, a detail known only to Eli and her immediate family. His mother was as taken aback as Eli was when he shared details about his dream. As Eli recounted the dream and the subsequent letter to Nathan, he realized that these were indeed Lily's words. True to her promise, Lily had reached out from the other side, making Eli a firm believer in the existence of life after death. At the tender age of 8, a young girl named Lucy moved to northern Arkansas with her mother, Sarah, and stepfather, Jim, who sought better job prospects. Their new abode was a stone's throw away from a dilapidated cemetery dating back to the late 1800s. An old, forsaken church resided on the premises, inviting the neighborhood children, including Lucy, to transform it into their playground. The tranquility of their lives was first disrupted on Lucy's 9th birthday. Sarah, her mother, insisted on inviting all the girls from Lucy's school for a sleepover party. Post-celebrations, Lucy led her friends to the old church house to explore, while one girl, rebellious and solitary, ventured into the prohibited cemetery grounds. This blatant disrespect to the departed irked Lucy and led to a squabble. Sarah, upon learning about the incident, summoned the girls back inside. As darkness began to envelop their world, strange incidents began to occur. Doors in Lucy's room slammed shut mysteriously, instilling terror in the young hearts. Despite the girls' cries, Sarah dismissed these strange occurrences as tricks of the air conditioning system and encouraged the girls to sleep. However, the uncanny incidents didn't cease. With each recurrence, the room was plunged into darkness, and the girls' fear escalated. Lucy's terror-stricken sobs enraged Sarah, suspecting the girls to be behind the mischief, sent Lucy to sleep alone on the couch in the living room. While she was grappling with her fears, Lucy felt something tugging at her covers. She saw a dark, nebulous form slithering across the room. Paralyzed with terror, Lucy let out a deafening scream only when the entity neared her couch. Her stepfather, Jim, came to her rescue, and the phantom disappeared under the glare of the lights. The next night, after the departure of the party guests and the resumption of routine life, Lucy felt an eerie presence in her room. Despite her pleas for a nightlight, Sarah permitted only a partially open door with the hallway light seeping in. As sleep began to take over, the same entity began its stealthy approach, leading Lucy into a series of horrifying recurring dreams. These dreams ended abruptly one night with Lucy being torn apart by grotesque creatures. After this event, she rarely dreamed. It seemed as if her mind decided to shield her from further trauma, or perhaps the entity decided to commandeer her dreams. As the years rolled by, peculiar occurrences continued. Personal belongings would mysteriously disappear and reappear, strange noises echoed in every house she moved to, and unexplained events unsettled those around her. The longer Lucy resided in a place, the stronger the entity grew. While it never caused harm, its incessant presence spooked everyone. Cleansing rituals, prayers, and spiritualistic approaches seemed powerless against it. Curiously, when Lucy was upset, objects fell off shelves, and lights blew out when she touched switches, akin to the story of Matilda. An unusual static charge persisted around her, causing her hair to stick to her face, and mysterious orbs began to appear regularly in her home. With an intense spiritual energy enveloping her property, Lucy grappled with an explanation. Extensive research brought no answers, leaving her to wonder if these manifestations were somehow linked to her suppressed fears. Any insights or information into this peculiar situation would be most welcome, as it seemed she was at her wit's end. Three months prior, Samuel was returning home from a visit to his second eldest son's home. The sun was setting, but there was still plenty of light to see. His route home took him through a state two-lane highway, surrounded by countryside beauty, a blend of cornfields and woods, with undulating terrain. That evening, the road was surprisingly quiet. Suddenly, he came upon a fire truck blocking the road. Recognizing a road closure, he swiftly changed his route, utilizing his local knowledge. He sent a text to an acquaintance in the local sheriff's department, inquiring about the reason behind the roadblock. Before he could receive a response, an intense feeling urged him to linger around the area. He decided to head to a nearby cemetery, a place he frequented for capturing videos and audio. Shortly after, he received a text explaining the roadblock was due to a fatal collision between a car and a truck. The passenger in the car, a local woman, had tragically died. As Samuel pulled into the cemetery, he received another text containing two disturbing photos of the wreck. The car was almost unrecognizable, covered in a protective sheet on the driver's side. Firefighters and a medical examiner were huddled around the car, their solemn expressions revealing their inner sorrow. The background was just as expected: a fire truck, another emergency vehicle, and a forest backdrop. The name of the deceased was familiar to Samuel because of his previous career, during which he had interacted with her several times. As he sat in the cemetery, examining the photos, he was overcome by a persistent feeling that he was missing something crucial in the picture. Encouraged by this instinctual voice, he zoomed in on the picture. What he discovered was absolutely chilling. Just behind the emergency service workers stood the face of the deceased woman. He was taken aback, recognizing her even after years of not seeing her. Despite the shock, he couldn't deny her presence in the photo, observing her own body with an expression of total disbelief. The next day, he visited the deputy, eager to hear the full story of the incident and to reveal the enlarged photo. The deputy's face paled instantly at the sight of the picture. "That's her," "But that's not possible. She was dead when this was taken," he said. Samuel showed the photo to a few more people, being careful not to infringe on the privacy of the woman's family. The reactions were consistently the same: absolute shock. The woman in the picture appeared younger, with her original hair color and style. In his 23 years of service, Samuel had seen numerous fatalities, even experiencing people passing away in his arms. Yet, he had never witnessed something like this. He found the whole experience extraordinarily moving, making him reflect on his long-held property and his family's history. To set the stage, this tale dates back 7 years. Sarah and her then-boyfriend, Jack, had just reconciled after a short breakup. Jack's brother had recently tied the knot and acquired a new house. While the newlyweds embarked on their honeymoon, Sarah and Jack had agreed to stay and tidy up their vacated residence. In retrospect, Sarah found the arrangement a bit peculiar, but her willingness to assist overpowered any oddness. One evening while they were at the house, Sarah and Jack were busying themselves with unpacking and doing the dishes. To commemorate their reconciliation, Jack decided to step out to purchase some ingredients for a celebratory dinner, leaving Sarah alone in the house. In the meantime, Sarah was busily washing dishes while listening to music from Pandora on her phone. The phone was placed face down on the couch, its speaker blaring towards the back. The battery was nearly drained, only around 15% remaining. Roughly quarter of an hour later, the music abruptly ceased. Assuming her phone battery had expired, she continued doing the dishes, but the silence was unsettling, filling the house with an uncanny atmosphere. She sped through the remaining dishes and went to check her phone. Much to her surprise, her phone hadn't died. It had around 10% battery left, and the music app was still running with the volume up. Despite her efforts, the music refused to resume. She sat on the couch, attempting to troubleshoot the issue. The couch was positioned facing the kitchen, with the front door and dining room to her left, and an archway leading to a hallway on her right. Beyond the archway, there was a bathroom straight ahead, a bedroom with windows to the right, and a windowless bedroom on the left. As Sarah fiddled with her phone, she noticed a shadow dart across the archway, reminding her of the blink of an eye. Defying logic, Sarah followed the shadowy figure, which seemed like a woman in a long dress with flowing dark hair, into the windowless bedroom. The only object in the room was a partially open, old metal accordion closet door. As she stepped into the room, Sarah was paralyzed with fear. She couldn't move or utter a word. The shadowy woman stood in the opposite corner of the room, both frozen in silence. It felt like an eternity, but it was merely seconds. Jack returned home at that moment and called out to Sarah. When she didn't respond, he called out louder. Sarah, still frozen, was unable to respond. Suddenly, the accordion closet door began to rattle, and the shadowy woman started to scream, moving towards Sarah. Panic-stricken and unable to move, Sarah thought this was her end, but Jack quickly lifted her off the ground and carried her back into the living room. He scolded her for following the apparition, repeating that she should know better. Surprisingly, Jack had some sage spray, which, in retrospect, added another layer of strangeness to the incident. They lit a few candles, and the eeriness slowly dissipated. Nothing more occurred that evening, but the encounter left an indelible mark on Sarah. Years later, she had a similar experience, but this time, Jack wasn't with her and it wasn't in the same house. She couldn't help but ponder the mysterious events that unfolded that night. Around 42 years ago, when a woman named Emily was just a child, there was an old, dilapidated house situated on their family property. The house, locked tightly and on the verge of collapsing, had existed on the property even before Emily's family had taken ownership. Given their limited funds, Emily's family was unable to demolish it. The inside of the house was a scene of decay and abandonment. It hosted a gigantic wasp's nest, the size of which Emily likened to a dumpster, and numerous rat nests scattered throughout the house. Despite its decrepit state, the house held a certain mystery and fascination, especially for young Emily. Years later, when Emily was around 10 or 11, the family finally scraped together the funds necessary to tear down the house. Emily's grandfather, a resilient old man with a knack for discovering hidden treasures, decided to venture into the old house a few times. His mission was to comb through the rat nests and the forgotten corners, hoping to discover something of value that might have been stashed away years ago. On one of his searches, he discovered an antique locket adorned with an image of a unicorn and a rainbow on the front, along with a broken digital clock. Young Emily, always charmed by mystical and magical things, fell in love with the locket. Her grandfather gave her the locket, and for the few days following, as the house was being demolished, she wore it proudly. However, Emily's joy was short-lived as she began experiencing a series of unfortunate events. Her beloved action figure broke, and her favorite SNES game lost all its saved data. Then, one night, after the demolition of the house was completed, she had a terrifying nightmare. In her dream, a malevolent shadowy figure of a woman emerged from the site where the house had once stood, snatched the locket off Emily's neck, and disappeared into the night through the bedroom window. When Emily woke up, she discovered the locket was missing. This left her deeply unsettled. She spent about a week in a fruitless search, and then a whole year pondering its whereabouts before finally accepting that it was lost. However, a twist of fate brought the locket back into Emily's life. 23 years later, Emily found it in the attic of her home, a place she was certain she had never visited as a child because of the potential hazards. The sight of the locket caused her heart to pound, and a chilling sensation swept over her. Despite the eerie feeling, Emily felt a strange compulsion to take the locket. From the moment she rediscovered the locket, her life was marked by a week of misfortune. Despite this, she couldn't bring herself to discard the locket. Instead, she hid it away in a drawer, hardly daring to touch it. Ever since, she's been plagued by the thought that the locket might be cursed, its origins in the old house bringing not just a touch of mystery, but a whisper of the supernatural into her life.